Hello and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another historical humans heritage. And on today's episode, we are going to the wonderful city of London and Westminster, where we are looking at the Palace of Westminster, Westminster Abbey, including St. Margaret's Church. And this is actually a continuation off of a YouTube short I did yesterday on the 16th where we talked about the Great Fire of Westminster, the burning of Parliament. A very interesting and tragic story. Yeah, it's not as much fun when you do that.
I
Oh.
will sabotage anything. I'm kidding. I'm not that anti-British.
As an overall whole, we're very American. But the Palace of Westminster is an interesting one because it was built by Knut the Great, who was king of England, along with like two other nations. I think he was in Nordic and Denmark. I think he was a Danish prince that won the English throne. Um, but he started the original construction, and then the palace and grounds were expanded upon by Edward the Confessor, and then by William the Conqueror, William Rufus, along with King Henry the Third. So
Yeah.
a lot of very prominent leaders and kings that have contributed, and then since the 1250s, it's been the seat of Parliament after the model Parliament was originally created there. But
Yep.
the in 1834 there was a fire that broke out. And Colin, do you know much about the fire of Parliament?
No, I'm afraid I do not. It is one of those things where I have actually not looked into this prior to ever opening up the show here today.
So it's kind of funny, and obviously you guys could tell that I'm the one that picked this topic just because it's very interesting. But they used to have a system where the accounting and everything was done on these wooden slates, and that was how they were able to do most of their accounting. It was like I can't think of the proper term for it now. Oh, I really wish I had.
Abacus.
It wasn't an abacus. No, it was like a wooden thing that they carved. Um, but what happened was obviously they were burning these wooden tally sticks, is what they're called,
Hmm.
uh, that they used to use. So Parliament, not Congress, used to use tally sticks for their accounting and for number keeping because it was a way to memorize them. Well, at a certain point in the late 18th century, they switched away from that. They started going away from it. And they said, well, we have all these wooden tally sticks. What are we going to do with them? Naturally, they used two furnaces under the House of Lords and began burning the tally sticks. And there were specific requirements that they weren't supposed to build the fire larger than 10 centimeters or about 4 inches. But these fires burned so hot, it melted the copper lining inside of the furnace and caused a chimney fire that just took out the House of Lords and took out most of Parliament. And one of my favorite things about this is King William IV offered Buckingham Palace as a replacement, and the members of Parliament said no, it was too dingy.
Yep. Now, keep in mind, this is the 1840s, so the skies over most of England are soot black almost all the time. So when we say dingy, I'm talking it's raining ash on everything 24/7.
Well, and that also was before Queen Victoria underwent the extensive renovations of the palace.
Yeah.
So by dingy, it was probably pretty beaten up and pretty low
Yeah.
quality, but it just is a very interesting story and kind of the backstory. But one of the good things to come out of it is after they did the reconstruction, and this is part of why it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site, is they employed an architect who did the entire building, the entire renovation, in a Gothic revival style,
Yep.
invoking previous generations of design and elements, and it became something all its own. Like it is gorgeous.
Yeah. 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 The architect really brought the whole thing together. and is the reason why it is a UNESCO heritage site as a singular site. Aside from the fact that it's all the buildings associated with the British Parliament. But aside from that, there's two notable things with two different parts of this that actually get to go back further than the reconstruction after the fire that are also listed as part of why it's on the UNESCO World Heritage Site. The first is that there are some parts of the original palace that can, at the very, very foundation level, so buried in the mud right now, that can in fact be dated back to Edward the Confessor in the 11th century.
Yeah, it's such a great name.
Yeah. And the Westminster School, which is a part of Westminster Abbey and the general church functions that go on there, that school, which dates back all the way to the 12th century, has its current version set with a founding in 1560 by Queen Elizabeth I, when she went in and reorganized and renovated some things, some of which are still there today. So there's these two instances of older architecture that lend itself to the historical value of the site, even though the site is almost entirely the 1840s reconstruction.
Well, mainly just the palace part, but yeah, you have Westminster Abbey and the St. Margaret's School that really add to that authenticity, and it's
Yeah.
very interesting because this part of London has been continuously inhabited for thousands of years and has been a seat of government in England since the 11th century. So it's really an incredible thing, and they do mention the architects, or at least influencing the works of Charles Barry and Augustus Webley Pugin with the Gothic revival of the 19th century. So, it's one thing to rebuild a historic monument. It's another thing to create an all new architectural style because of the grandeur. And question for you, and this is a small trivia question. What's the name of the tower?
You're not talking about the clock tower, Big Ben. You're talking about the nice central tower in the middle
Oh
in
no,
the
I
middle
am
of it,
talking about
right?
the clock tower.
The clock tower, yeah, the clock tower is Big Ben.
Nope.
I know they changed the name, but just like Sears Tower in Chicago, I will die on this hill.
They have never changed the name of it, fun fact. They actually originally named it the Queen Elizabeth Tower because obviously Queen Elizabeth did found the school, and it's Big Ben who is the bell within the tower. However, it just colloquially is continuously known as Big Ben, but the tower is St. Elizabeth's Tower. And you
You
guys
know
can
what?
use that to annoy your friends for free.
Yeah, I'm going back on things I've said outside of recording. I'm siding with Boudica. She can burn the city.
you
Going
know,
back to the Romans, set fire to everything.
I also just think back to V for Vendetta. They actually did end up burning down Parliament, but they did it themselves.
Yay,
But
Britain.
um, circling back to this, is the not only is the authenticity great because it's still maintained to work and do its daily thing. I mean, Westminster Abbey is still used daily for worship. Its coronation church is still used for every king coronation. It's still got burial systems.
Yep. Yep. 1,000 years of continuous use.
Insane. And then it is also one of the most protected sites in the world, given everything that is there. Starting with how the UK government protects World Heritage properties. Firstly, they have a specific planning listed buildings and conservation areas act of 1990 and the 1979 ancient monuments and archaeological areas act, and then also through the spatial planning system that helps protect it. And it is listed as they're listed buildings and scheduled ancient monuments, which is kind of crazy that they're scheduled ancient monuments, but I understand
Yep.
their reference. And
Yep.
then there's also national planning frameworks in place that has policies to protect, promote, preserve the properties.
Yep. Then you have the Mayor's London Plan, which is a 25-year what's the word? Development plan that is regularly reviewed and renewed. Then you have the City of Westminster with its core strategy, which is a series of historic protections that are the purview of Westminster only. Not even the rest of London gets to be involved in this. The site itself gets to have its own policies and presumably its own budget. I assume Parliament would give itself money to be Parliament.
Well, it's the city of Westminster. It's not associated with Parliament.
Yeah, tomato, tomato.
You get into those lovely British jurisdictional anomalies. But we talk about this a lot on this series that this site has a conservation plan in place. It has a comprehensive management plan. These are all things that you really do want to see with these very important historic sites because it lays out what they're doing, how they're doing it, how long they're going to be doing it, and effectively looking 10 miles up the road to try and figure out what's going to happen in the near future. And one of the things this article doesn't talk about but I can out of personal experience was I got to see I got to see Elizabeth Tower in Big Ben prior to its restoration, which the restoration lasted from like 2014, 2015 all the way to like 2021. So it
Yeah,
was
no, I,
almost 8 years of complete obscurity.
yeah, I saw it with the scaffolding on it. They had taken a lot of the tarps off, and they were mostly done. They were about, I think, a little over halfway through, so they didn't need to so much as protect everything. They could let you see it, but it had all the scaffolding around it.
Yeah, I got to see it unobscured in its entirety, and that was beautiful.
Yeah.
But it is one of the key tourist sites in the UK, in all of Europe, really. It very much is a very important and highly prolific place. So, kind of something cool we could talk about here in another modern take. So, thank you guys for watching. Let us know what you think, and we'll see you in the next one.